Hello NCU students, welcome to week 2. Hope things are going well for you. Our learning objectives this week include understanding the basic of descriptive statistics from chapter 3 and the basics of probability from chapter 4. Here's what we're looking at this week. We're going to be interpreting the terminology central tendency and those measures of numerical data sets. We're going to be looking at mean, median, and mode. These are all in the realm of descriptive statistics. We're going to be looking at the interpreting the variation measures of numerical data sets, emphasis on the word variation. So we're going to be looking at range and standard deviation, z-scores, and that sort of thing. And then we're going to understand and look at the shapes of the numerical data sets, like the curves that they produce. So we'll be looking at topics like skews and box and whisker plots. From chapter 4, we're looking at probabilities. We're going to be defining probability of events. We're going to be defining those terms of probabilities like events and variables. And then we're going to look at some of the basic rules of probability. As we start the discussion about descriptive statistics from chapter 3, it's important to remember one key mathematical principle that make descriptive statistics possible. When we take consistent measurements of a feature of a characteristic of something, we create a data set. We learned about this earlier on, back in chapter 1, I think. So when you're measuring the time it takes you to commute to work each day, you create a data set measured in minutes, hopefully, not hours. And here's the mathematical principle. So most data sets tend to hover around a central value. So most of the time measurements of your trips to work each day are likely very similar. They float around that same length of time. And most of the time we would describe that time it typically takes us to commute as the average. Now, in statistics we use the term mean instead of average, but it means the same thing. And in statistics we have other ways to describe that typical commute time or that central value. We use terms like mean, which we just talked about, but also median and mode to describe all those central tendency that the numbers have of our data set. You see, we have more available to us than just talk about the average to describe a typical data set. Now, additionally, we have other ways to describe that data set too. So while we use mean, median, and mode to describe the central tendency around a certain numerical value, we can also describe the variation or the spread of the data. Think about it for a moment. If your commute to work each day is predictable, your data set of measured commute times not going to vary very much. It's going to be about the same. Most of the data measurements will be very similar. But now, what happens if there's a storm, a train, an accident? Now your measured time in the data set begins to vary or spread out more. And that spread in the data, set is what range and variation, standard deviation, and z-scores measure. Now the most popular measurement that we need to get to know is that it's called standard deviation, and it gives us some insight to how clustered or gathered around or how tightly clustered all the values are in the data set around the mean. Be sure to review the attend section. I included a short, informative, and kind of fairly entertaining video to help explain the usefulness of mean, median, and mode. I've also included a video on the shape of numbers, like the skewness that we were talking about earlier. So check out the skewness video as well. All right, let's switch over to chapter 4 now. Chapter 4 is all about probabilities. The concept of probability is the basic foundation for what we're going to study later on called inferential statistics, which we take on in weeks 4, 5, and 6. So let's get the basics down now. The terms in the language of probability include things like events, variables, and probability. And according to our text and some other similar to statistical texts, events describe each possible outcome of a variable. Variables, again, describe some characteristic of an item, and we learned about that back in chapter 1. Probability, then, is the chance that a particular event will occur for that variable. Probabilities are always between 0 and 1. 0 is ain't no chance the event's going to happen. It's 0%. And 1, of course, is the complete opposite. There's a 100% chance the event will happen. So, speaking of your commute to work each day, what is the probability you will get into an accident while commuting to work? The event is having an accident. The variable is you're going to commute to work. And the probability is hopefully 0. No chance you'll get into an accident. If, however, there's a 95% probability that you're going to get into an accident while commuting to work, that'd be 0.95. It's between 0 and 1, leaning definitely towards the 1. You get that high a probability, you just need to call in sick. All right. Listen, I also found 2 videos and 1 article that I believe do a credible job of reviewing the basics of probability. And I think they use similar terms as our text, so that's why I picked them out. So check those out. Pay special attention to the conditions when you need to add or multiply probabilities together. It's in the article and in our text. But just briefly, when you're looking to answer the probability of 2 events both occurring, you multiply. But when you're looking to answer the probability of 1 event or the other happening, you add. So the probability of event A and event B happening means that you multiply the 2 probabilities together. The probability of event A or event B happening means that you add the probability of A to the probability of B. Be sure to read about those rules of probability in our text in section 4.3. All right, that's it for now, but just some reminders about deadlines. Discussion lead posts are due on Thursday midnight. The follow-up posts are due on Sunday. The quizzes Sunday, assignments all due Sunday midnight. I hold virtual office hours on Tuesday evenings from 7 to 7:30 Pacific time. And start thinking about your business data analytical project. Consider a simple but effective project where you work. More to come on this, but the primer is due in week 5, so I'm just giving you a heads up now. Start thinking about what that project might be at work. Think about a project that you can measure some data on and then report descriptively and inferentially on it. Okay, please be sure to watch this week's devotional and catch all the material in the Attend tab. A lot of material in those tabs to help you along. All right, remember, God is on his throne. He's always been and always will be. Have a great week.